I never told my best friend I was the reason her scholarship got revoked because I cheated off her final paper without her knowing, and when she called me crying that night saying I don't know what I did wrong, I just sat on the other end of the line and said I'm so sorry like I meant something else. I, 29 female, never told my best friend, 30 female, I was the reason her scholarship got revoked, because I cheated off her final paper without her knowing. She called me that night crying, asking what she did wrong. And I just sat there on the phone and said, I'm so sorry, like I meant something else. Like I was sorry for her, not because of me. We haven't spoken in years. This happened almost 10 years ago, and I've thought about it every day since. Lena and I met freshman year. We lived across the hall in the dorms, and she was the one who helped me figure out the laundry machines the first week. That's how it started. A small favor. Then late-night food runs, study sessions that turned into hour-long conversations, and inside jokes that lasted years. By the time we moved into an off-campus apartment junior year, we were inseparable. She was the kind of person who had her life mapped out by the semester. Double major, work-study, volunteering. She even had a color-coded planner. Meanwhile, I was barely keeping my head above water. I had switched majors twice, was behind on credits, and had no idea what I wanted to do. She never judged me for it. She just kept me afloat. Gave me reminders, made me tea on the nights I crammed, and let me borrow her notes when I missed class. Which was often. But the thing is, I never felt like she looked down on me. She genuinely wanted to help. That's what made it worse. It was our senior year. One of our required electives was History 302. I didn't care about the subject, and I skipped more classes than I should have. The professor was strict, the kind who clearly didn't like students and made that known. When it came time for the final paper, I was screwed. I hadn't read half the assigned material. And if I failed this class, I wouldn't graduate on time. I remember the night it happened. It was finals week. Lena had printed out her paper early, like she always did, and left it on her desk with a few handwritten notes. She was in the shower, and I was pacing around the apartment pretending to brainstorm. That's what I told myself. That I just needed inspiration. That I wasn't going to do anything bad. But I sat at her desk. I read the first few paragraphs. They were good. Like, really good. And I panicked. I felt like my whole body went cold. Next thing I knew, I was typing. Rewording a few things, changing some phrases. But let's be honest, it was still her paper. I submitted it that night. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat the next day. But when nothing happened right away, I started to believe I'd gotten away with it. Finals ended. Grades posted. We both passed. She didn't mention anything, so I convinced myself everything was fine. Until a month later. We were both back in our hometowns for a short summer break. I got a call around 11 p.m. I was lying in bed watching TV when the screen lit up with her name. I picked up, half asleep. She said, "Hey," and then there was silence. Her voice sounded shaky. Not like herself. And then she said it. They revoked my scholarship. I sat straight up in bed. What? Why? She told me someone had flagged her final paper for plagiarism. She said the dean's office contacted her. They said her paper was almost identical to another student's. They wouldn't say who. I could hear her trying not to cry. She said, "I don't know what I did wrong. I wrote every word myself." And she had. I just sat there on the other end of the line, heart pounding in my ears. I couldn't speak. I didn't know what to say. So I just whispered, "I'm so sorry." She thought I meant I was sorry for her. That I was just being a supportive friend. She thanked me. Over and over. For being there. I almost threw up when I hung up the phone. A few weeks later, she packed up her stuff and left campus. She couldn't afford school without that scholarship. She moved back home and got a job at some local nonprofit. She said she'd maybe try to go back someday, but I don't think she ever did. She stopped texting me after a while. I didn't blame her. I didn't reach out either. To this day, she doesn't know it was me. That I stole her work. That I ruined everything she worked for. She thought it was some kind of mistake or system error. She trusted me completely. And I betrayed her in the worst way. I never told anyone. I got my degree. Got a job. Moved on, at least on the outside. But I still think about her. About how she used to sit on the couch cross-legged, editing her papers with a highlighter in her hair. About how proud she was of that last assignment. And I remember the sound of her voice when she said, "I don't know what I did wrong." I said I was sorry. But I never told her what for. After Lena left, I told myself I'd confess one day. That I'd write her a letter. That I'd explain it all, apologize, beg for forgiveness. I even started drafting something once in a Word doc. But I never sent it. I told myself it would only make things worse. That maybe she was happier not knowing the truth. But really, I was just a coward. We had mutual friends, but nobody ever brought it up. Her name came up less and less over time. I figured she'd blocked me on social media. I didn't try to check. Then, about 2 years later, I ran into someone who knew her. It was at a work conference. One of those awkward networking events with cheap wine and tiny sandwiches. I was standing by the bar when I heard someone say her name. It was Jamie, a girl we'd both had classes with. She saw me and came over, smiled like everything was fine. "Hey," she said, "did you hear Lena's working with that environmental group in Chicago now? She got back into school, part-time. Still paying her way, but she seems good." I nodded like that news didn't hit me like a truck. Later that night, I looked her up. She'd started a small blog. Mostly photos of the city, short thoughts on politics and books she was reading. She looked okay. A little older, a little more serious. But okay. She had no idea I ever read it. That's when I started following her anonymously. I checked every few months. She never mentioned what happened at school. Never hinted at it. Maybe she buried it, too. Then came the part one didn't expect. Last year, I applied for a position at a nonprofit downtown. It was a step up for me. More responsibility, better pay, work that actually mattered. I went through 3 rounds of interviews. Everything was going well. Until I saw the name on the board of directors. Lena. I stared at it for almost a full minute. I don't know if she would have seen my application. I don't know if she would have remembered my name, or maybe she never forgot. But I withdrew. I said I had a conflict of interest, and pulled out before the final interview. That night, I found myself on her blog again. Scrolling through her posts like some kind of ghost. One photo caught my eye. It was of her sitting on the edge of a rooftop, city skyline behind her. And the caption just said, "Some lessons take years to make sense." I don't know if that was about me. Probably not. But I still couldn't sleep after I saw it. Here's the part that still messes with me. Last month, I was walking through the park near my apartment. It was one of those cool, windy afternoons. I had just picked up coffee and was about to head home when I saw her. Lena. She was sitting on a bench, alone, looking out at the water. I stopped in my tracks. My heart dropped into my stomach. I don't know if she saw me. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds. Frozen. Every part of me wanted to go to her. To say something. To confess. To fall at her feet and say, "I ruined your life and I've never stopped thinking about it." But I didn't. I turned around and walked away. And now, I can't stop thinking about that moment. The chance I had, and what I chose not to do. 2 weeks after I saw her in the park, I got an email from my current job's HR department. Standard subject line, reference check request. I opened it like it was nothing. Just part of the routine. But as I read through the forwarded message, my throat tightened. It was a request from an organization called Green Steps Chicago, the same nonprofit where Lena worked. Different role, different department, but same company. And the reference was for someone I'd worked with briefly, a younger guy named Ben who interned under me last summer. He was bright, quiet, always polite. We'd had maybe 3 real conversations. The email asked for my honest feedback on his performance. But what stuck out wasn't the request. It was the name at the bottom. Lena Monroe, Senior Program Lead, she was the one requesting it. I stared at the screen for a long time. My hands started sweating. I wondered, did she remember my name? Did she know this request had come to me? Was she testing something? Or was this just random? A formality? I had no idea what to do. My first instinct was to ignore it. Just let it expire. But something stopped me. Some part of me needed to respond. Not for him. For her. So I wrote a reply. Kept it professional. Talked about Ben's work ethic, his reliability, his initiative. A short paragraph. Then I sat staring at the cursor, thinking. I hovered over the keyboard for a long time before I typed the last line. P.S. Tell Lena I hope she's doing well. I think about her often. Claire. I deleted it. Typed it again. Deleted it again. In the end, I sent it without the note. And then, 5 days later, I got an email. Not from HR. Not from the organization. From her. Just her name in the sender field. No subject line. It simply said, I saw you in the park. My stomach dropped. I must have read it 20 times before I even breathed. She had seen me. She knew. But that was it. No other words. No accusations. No questions. No hint of anger. Just that sentence. I didn't respond right away. I couldn't. I sat with it for hours, then a full day. I didn't sleep that night. I kept hearing her voice in my head. That quiet, cracked voice from years ago, asking, I don't know what I did wrong. I finally wrote back. I wanted to say something. I just couldn't. I'm sorry. That was all I could manage. She didn't reply. Days passed. Then weeks. I started checking my email obsessively. Refreshing like a teenager waiting for a text. But nothing came. And then, one night, I got another message. Just one sentence again. I figured it out a long time ago. That was it. No confrontation. No curse words. No threats. But it felt heavier than anything she could have screamed. I sat in my kitchen that night for hours, just staring at my hands. I had no idea she'd known. That she'd carried it quietly all this time. That she'd let me believe I got away with it. I wonder how long she waited for me to say something. How many times she wanted to ask. Or maybe she didn't need to. Maybe I had already told her the truth that night on the phone, in the silence between her tears. I've written her so many replies since then. Long ones. Honest ones. Angry ones. Broken ones. But I never send them. I don't think she wants my words anymore. I think silence is the answer. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I had just told her the truth back then. If I'd called her the next morning and said, it was me. I panicked. I'm so sorry. Maybe she would have screamed. Maybe she never would have spoken to me again. But at least she would have known. Instead, she had to carry that question, why? And I let her. I moved on. Got a job. A partner. A life that looks normal from the outside. But every time I have to mentor someone younger, or write a recommendation, or talk about integrity in the workplace, I feel like a fraud. Like I'm still that person sitting on the edge of the bed, pretending not to hear my best friend break on the phone. You think time will soften it. That eventually the guilt will fade. But it doesn't. It just gets quieter. You stop crying about it and start living with it. Like an old injury that doesn't heal right. Some days you forget it's there. Other days, it flares up. And sometimes, like now, you feel it sharper than ever, because you know there's still someone out there who remembers your silence better than anything you ever said. She figured it out a long time ago. And she never needed me to confess. But I think I did.